What's up, y'all? This is Dr. Jason Freeman. I'd like to welcome y'all to my channel. And so this past Saturday, June 18th, I saw the much anticipated Flash movie starring Ezra Miller and Michael Keaton. And so after I watched that film, I realized that I've seen pretty much all of the DCEU films, with the exception of Black Adam. And so I went ahead and watched Black Adam yesterday. And so I decided, you know what? Let me go ahead and rank all those films from worst to best in my humble opinion. So before I get to number 14 on my list, I do want to mention that I did a video earlier this week where I talked about how the explanation for time travel given by Bruce Wayne in the Flash film actually makes sense. So you can check out that video. I still don't remember which side it's going to be on. It's on one of these sides. You can see a little card. So look at the card, and there you go. And so click on the card and please check out that video. All right. So number 14 on my list is Wonder Woman 1984. All right. So where do I start with this one? Well, first, the film doesn't have any real coherent internal logic. They make this whole thing about, well, you only really get one wish. And then, of course, there's a character, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, there's a character that gets two wishes just because it works for the plot. It's very convenient. So that doesn't make sense. There is this weird / disturbing subplot where Diana is reunited with Steve Trevor, but in another man's body. And there's an insinuation, I would say probably more than an insinuation. It's very clear that she has sex with Steve, but it's not Steve's body, is the other guy's body. And imagine if it was reversed, where Steve brings back, Diana from some kind of dead thing, but he's having sex with some other woman, in some other woman's body. Now that probably wouldn't go. So that's weird and creepy. Also, why bring Steve Trevor back? The sacrifice he makes in that first Wonder Woman movie is one of the things that makes that movie great. And I'll go ahead and spoil. Is that one of the top, very high on my list. And so to cheapen it by bringing them back in this very weird, odd way, it just doesn't make sense to me. And so yeah, I'm not a big fan of this film at all. Also, the way they beat the villain is just dumb. It's just a dumb ending, and I'm trying not to be too specific because I don't want to spoil the film. I mean, if you love Wonder Woman, haven't seen it, watch it. But yeah, the way they defeat the villain is just silly and dumb, and that's a theme with some of the films I don't like. The ending just doesn't work, and so that kind of hurts the rest of the film that builds up to that ending. So yeah, it's just not a great film. And when I saw the film, I realized if I made a list at that time when I first saw the film, it would have been the bottom of that list too, even before I saw the other ones that happened after it. Number 13 on my list, Suicide Squad. Not to be confused with The Suicide Squad, that was directed by James Gunn. This version, this Suicide Squad movie is starring Will Smith. Playing Will Smith. Now, this film is all over the place. Now, I'll be honest, when it comes to the trailers for these films, this is number one for me. This has the best trailer, aside from maybe the Man of Steel trailer, the one, which I thought was really cool. But this has the best trailer, I think, beyond the other films. The film itself is hot garbage. I mean, it's all over the place. The villain, again, kind of what I mentioned with Wonder Woman 1984. The villain the villain in this case is horrible. But how it ended, again, is kind of dumb. So I guess that's the similarity. It's just a dumb ending. And so yeah, I just didn't like the film, and I was looking forward to this one. Like I hadn't heard of the Suicide Squad, so I went and looked up the comics. I thought those comics were kind of cool, but then this movie was just all over the place and a mess. And again, as I mentioned, Will Smith is playing himself again. So yeah, I'm positive though, so I don't want to just be totally negative. Harley Quinn is amazing. So Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, one of my favorite characters in the DCEU. It's one of my big disappointments. If this is the case, if we don't see her again, I mean that's a character that could definitely be utilized going forward, and with Margot Robbie playing that character. So yeah, so that was actually the high point for me for that film. But outside of that, yeah, it was not a great film. Number 12, Aquaman. Now I know Aquaman had a plot. I just have no idea what that plot was. I watched the film. I like Willem Dafoe. He's a great actor. And I like this version of Aquaman. I mean, I didn't like the other versions because I mean there wasn't really any other movie version, and the cartoon was just whatever. But I like Aquaman. I liked him in the other films in higher up in the ranking, and I kind of liked him in here. I think he was a good Aquaman, but the movie itself was just it's a mess. It's all over the place. The plot doesn't make sense. The CGI is horrible. And again, I try not to be too rough with CGI because it's technology and it's just it progresses. It'll get better, but it's just all around was just not a great film. Now, the one exception though is the trench scene. Like the trench is a villain within the Aquaman, like one of Aquaman's villains. That trench scene was cool. I did like that. I like the CGI. I like the scariness of it. I liked the villain, and they had mentioned doing a trench film, like a film based on the trench. I'd watch it. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty scary, pretty horrific in regards to like a horror film. But the way they ended it, and again, I try not to spoil it, but like having a certain character dressed up as one of the trench just number 11, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, I'll start with my biggest complaint with the film. Lex Luthor. I love Lex Luthor from the Superman like cartoons, growing up in the 90s, and even with not even with I loved the animated series like Batman animated series, and then the Superman animated series, and then the Justice League. I loved all those series, and so Luthor was a big part of both like in the 90s cartoons and the more recent series because he's this very intellectual, plotting, sinister, yet you can see him being kind of the public face of a corporation type villain. And this version of Lex Luthor is manic, annoying, too young. I mean, obviously, just for being up against. I mean, maybe the actor is older than I think he is, but his appearance is very young, and he just didn't come across as Lex Luthor. Another big issue is that it's kind of like with Suicide Squad. The film is all over the place. There's a lot that was packed into this one movie, and I get why they did it because they're trying to set up the Justice League movie, and so you're trying to introduce the characters, and then there's a whole big thing at the end where you introduce pretty much all of the Justice League, but it was too much. I think they should have done the Marvel route and introduced each of the characters separately first. That would have taken time. Yes, Marvel would have been ahead of them, but at the end of the day, you want a good product. And right now they're still trying to catch up with Marvel. I think that they should have just taken the time, introduced each of the characters separately, so you don't have this movie existing. This movie, in my opinion, should not have existed. They should have had all the intro movies like with Marvel, like what Marvel did, and then have the Justice League movie where you see them all meeting essentially for the first time. Number 10, Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu as your main villains. Why? I mean, yes, have them in there. Have these characters in the film. Again, I'm not trying to spoil anything, so I'm not gonna say who they are. But have these characters in the film. Just don't have them be those two people. And maybe Lucy Liu. I know she's a big martial artist, but she still, to me, doesn't seem physically intimidating. Like say a Gal Gadot. Had she not been Wonder Woman, I could see her as one of these characters. Again, going up physically against, Shazam and the Shazam family. So that would have made more sense to have someone who, I think about like Xena, watching Xena, Lucy Lawless, something like that. Like having them, as long as they can act, having them in these roles would have made more sense. But Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren just didn't make sense to me for these characters. Number 9, Black Adam. All right, so let me get it straight. So The Rock playing Black Adam does not have pointy ears, does not have a Middle Eastern or North African accent. Kandak is supposed to be like either Egypt or somewhere in the Middle East. He murders people, and he has basically the powers of Shazam. So this is basically Murder Shazam, Shazam that murders people. So Murder Shazam, starring The Rock and co-starring DC versions of The Falcon, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, and Storm, but worse versions. The plot and tone are all over the place, sometimes serious, sometimes comedic, at no time coherent. Number 8, Shazam. Now, overall, I love this film. So this is starting to get to the level, the number of films I actually really, really like. And so Shazam is definitely a very funny movie. That montage where he's trying to discover his powers, Billy Batson's trying to discover his powers. I love that. Like that's the part. Whenever I watch the film again, that's the part I really look forward to. There's one scene with beer. I'll stop. There's one thing with beer that I crack up every single time I see it because I'm like, yes, I love beer, but as a kid, yeah, no, but yeah. So yeah, I love the film overall. Especially again the montage, the comedic aspects of the film. But there's one thing that I really, really didn't like. Come on, Rock. Shazam should have been fighting Black Adam in this movie. Come on. Look, I mean, it was all set up. It's right there. It's a layup. Okay, so you have the skateboarding kid and Black Adam. That's the champion. So he's fine. The wizard finds him, makes him the champion. He gets mad at the wizard for whatever reason. Conduct's under occupation, and so he wants to fight. He's a fighter. And so whenever he goes into Shazam mode, he starts fighting people and killing people. So of course the wizard's like, nope, you can't have the power. And so then those demon guys gives the skateboard kid the power. This is my opinion. This isn't in the movie. This is what I said should be in the movie. He gives the skateboard kid the power. The wizard goes and gets Billy Batson, gets him, recruits him. They go through the whole power thing where he learns how to get the powers. He goes to Conduct. He fights Black Adam, gets his butt kicked they fight to a draw. He gets his butt kicked when those demons come in and start to help Black Adam. And then he goes, he's oh yes, family. Go get his family. And so you have the Shazam family versus the demons and Black Adam, and that's the movie. He wins. He eventually, maybe Black Adam can kill one of the kids. He decides not to because his kid got killed, and therefore he gives up his powers. The movie writes itself. Come on. Number 7, Justice League, directed by Joss Whedon. Now, this is the first of the films that I didn't really have any major issues with, or maybe had a very minor issue with the film overall. And so in this one, you have a really good, cool team. I love the Justice League. I love Flash. I love Wonder Woman. Aquaman is awesome. This version of Batman with Ben Affleck is great. So overall, love the team. They also have amazing chemistry. So I could see the relationships like the Flash and Batman relationship, like almost like not father son so much, kind of father son, but like mentor mentee type deal. Diana is really a really cool character, or this is a cool version of Diana. She's not, she doesn't put you off. She's very welcoming and warm. There's a naivete that you see also in her standalone film that I think is really cool. That really works for someone who hasn't really, hasn't been in the world or part of the world in the same way that the rest of them have. I mean, that she was on Themyscira, and she's still a little bit of an outsider in human society. So overall, I love this film. So the thing I didn't like about the film so much wasn't even the villain. It was more how the villain was defeated. So at the very end, you have this thing with the parademons and kind of turning on the villain to, that type of thing. Just how the villain was beaten and what led to that just didn't really work for me. I didn't care for it, and so so that was one of the only real thing. But it wasn't a deal breaker in that, oh God, it's a horrible movie because of that ending. The ending was as good as some Marvel movies have kind of relatively weak endings. But the film overall is great. Number 6, Birds of Prey. And yes, I know it has a much longer title. I'm not saying it. But it's Birds of Prey. It's Birds of Prey. But I love this film. The chemistry between the characters is great. I like the different characters, that team, essentially, the Birds of Prey. They were great. And yeah, I love the film. I mean, so a lot of the same things I liked about Joss Whedon's Justice League. And I'll talk on the Zack Snyder's Justice League as well as the chemistry of the team. And so I rooted for the team, and the women, the Birds of Prey team. I rooted for them. I liked them. When they were in peril, you worried because I didn't know the team as well. I don't really know them at all. I mean, I'd seen them in other things previously, but for the most part, I didn't know the team, and so I don't know. Maybe one of them gets killed. I don't know, but I like this team. It's a really cool team. And I love the tone of the film, and that's one of the big things with this film. It doesn't take itself too seriously. When you have some of these films, they're so dark, they're so brooding, and they take themselves way too seriously. I had fun with this film because it's a comedy. It's a lot of comedic stuff. It's very dark. She's literally feeding body parts to a hyena, but a harlequin. But overall, it's a great. I love the tone and it's fun, and the villain fits the tone. The Black Mask. It's kind of he's silly. He's a silliness to him that it's cool. I like that silliness. It's kind of like the Joker. The Joker is silly. He has silliness to him. The Joker in the original Batman '89. I like that. So again, it's one of those things. I like this film overall. The tone, the characters. It's just a very fun movie. But the thing I liked the most was Harley Quinn. Oh my God, I love Harley Quinn. I love Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Again, as I said before, I'm going to be very disappointed if we don't see her playing this character again. And it's her prerogative. She's a good actress, so she said, I'm done with this character. That's cool. She could do other characters, but in this particular film, as Harley Quinn, I'm a huge fan. And so Harley Quinn was at her, she was great in this. This is one scene you can see in the trailer. They're having a shootout and it's like cocaine, and I'm not advocating drugs at all, don't. But it's a silly comedy. But she takes the cocaine and she kind of goes, I don't know, like the smile goes crazy. I love that. It's fun. It's a silly movie, and she's great in this role. She's not taking herself too seriously, but there's some darkness to her. And so when she has to go there, she can go there. So overall, highly recommend this film. And when it doesn't do so well in the box office, I always wonder about, I guess the pandemic probably has something to do with this, but then some of the critics railed on it. I'm like, it's fun. It's good. Like, I don't get some of the criticism of this film in particular. I thought it should have done better overall. And I think going forward, there are people out there who love it like me. And I think there's always be a little bit of a cult following with it. Maybe the mainstream superhero people, especially with some of the misogyny out there. They're just never going to really embrace it, but I love it anyway. Number 5, The Flash. All right. So is The Flash the greatest superhero movie ever made? No. Is it really good? Yes. There's a lot of hyperbole around this. They call it the greatest movie ever made. I think James Gunn says the greatest movie ever made, or the greatest superhero movie ever made. No, but it's a really good film, and I feel like there's too much put on this film. First of all, Barry Allen is great. Now some people, like myself, found him a little bit annoying in the other films, but to me the annoying was awkwardness. He's just socially awkward, and that's fine. I mean, awkwardness is okay as long as it's not all I'm seeing the whole film. But he's awkward in some of the Justice League movies, the Justice League Snyder and Whedon movie. But in this one, he's awkward some, but for the most part, he's also a hero. Like, he definitely, you can see he's matured from the previous versions. He is, has been through some stuff. Think about the Snyder version of the Justice League. He's definitely, very important member of the team. So yeah, I like him overall as Barry Allen. And Michael Keaton, of course, he's one of my favorite versions of Batman. I love the Adam West Batman, just the silliness. Like that original 1960s movie. I love that film. It's fun. But this one, the Tim Burton Batman with Michael Keaton is great too. And so, I like it. I really love him as Batman. I'm glad I got to see him at least one more time as this character. I don't think he'll come back as Batman again. I think this is it. Or maybe like a little cameo somewhere, in the DCEU. Because again, he's still, with the parallel universe thing, he still exists out there. So you could see him again. But if this is the last time, this was fine. This is great. So I really liked him, like Michael Keaton. Number 4, The Suicide Squad. So when I first started coming with my list, I considered having this as my number 1 film, because when it comes to, if I was going to go back and watch a film just randomly, this would probably be the first film I would go to. Number 2 would be Birds of Prey. But the thing with my list, it's not just how much I enjoy the films; it's also what I think is the importance of the film to the overall like universe, the DCEU universe, which it looks like it's going away, but it still exists in movie form, so you can still go back and watch these films and get into them. But the point is, in regards to sheer enjoyment, this is probably number one. But I have it lower on the list because there are other films I think are more important. But I love this film. All the same stuff that I said about Birds of Prey, about this one, say about this one. It doesn't take itself too seriously. The villains, the bad guys fit the tone of the film. The chemistry, I think, is great. I mean, it's murderous. um, you know, there's a lot of like murder and mayhem, but it's also a lot of fun. There's this whole dance scene, which is one of my favorite scenes of the film, where a lot of funny stuff is happening. Was it the dot, the spot, whatever, one of Batman's weird villains? He's seeing his mom in different. It's weird, but it's funny and it's a comedy. It's a very dark comedy. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy. If you like Guardians of the Galaxy, I think you like the Suicide Squad. It's the same kind of tone. It's just bloodier. And I don't know if this is the case, but if James Gunn could have made Guardians of the Galaxy bloody, he probably would have done that. I don't know if that fits the comic. I didn't know the comic Guardians of the Galaxy existed before the movies came out, like a lot of people. But yeah, so yeah, I love this film. It's really cool. It's really good, and it's one of my favorites. Again, when it comes to just sheer enjoyment, going back and watching a film, this is number one for me. But regards to importance, there are at least three other films I think are more important and are really good within the DCEU. Number three, Zack Snyder's The Justice League. First and foremost, I am a big fan of Joss Whedon in regards to his work. I was a Buffy fan growing up. Not growing up, but like when it was popular, I loved Buffy. As big or bigger fan of Angel. Honestly, I feel like I got into Angel more than Buffy only because age-wise, when Buffy came out, I would watch it off and on. But Angel came on at a time when I actually could lock in, watch it, get into it. I love Angel. So I love Joss. I love Angel. Dr. Horrible's that sing along. I listen to music on Spotify now. I love that music for that film. Neil Patrick Harris is like Dr. Horrible. So and Nathan Fillion is kind of the superhero guy. It's great. And so I'm a Joss Whedon fan in regards to his work, but what he did with The Flash and with Cyborg, more importantly, and also I would say Wonder Woman, based on some of the things he did with that character, are not literally, but in regards to artistically criminal. I mean, let me start with Cyborg. Cyborg in the trailers was featured. It's obvious Zack Snyder had a lot intended for him. And you see the Justice League, his version, Zack Snyder's Justice League, you see he's a major character. The only reason, and so you look at what he is in Whedon, and I'm like, what the hell? I mean, he's cut out of the movie. He's there, but he's cut out. Come on. He's barely in the Joss Whedon version, and he's pivotal in the Snyder version. So there had to be something personal. I don't think it's a racial thing. Personally, I don't. I look at Whedon overall and look at his work and things like that. I don't think there's a racial element. I mean, I could be wrong. But I don't think so. But the point is, that character, had been something going on with him not liking that character, the actor, and he cut him out of the film. And if I'm that actor, I'm like, what happened? And obviously, it seems like there was stuff on the set that was going on, and the reason he cut him out of the film. But it was criminal. Like, and I say kill the film. I love the Joss Whedon version of the film, but you fundamentally changed the film to something less than by doing that. And The Flash also, I think, was also essentially criminal. And it might have been a personal thing. Him and Ezra May didn't get along, but The Flash at the end of Snyder's Justice League is extremely important. He basically wins the fight for him, other than Superman. And so to change it to that, the Russian, I don't know, whatever, the Russian family was added, and the ending, I said I didn't like the ending of the original of the Justice League, of the Whedon version. Why? Like, so to me, the Snyder version is way better than the Whedon version for a lot of reasons. In particular, what they did with Cyborg, what they did with Flash is way better. The villain overall, I think, is it's more intimidating to me in the Snyder version. Also, the opening thing, the battle scene in the Snyder version, that's one of my favorite parts of the film, and it's not essentially not in the Whedon version. So I don't get why Whedon made the cuts he did. Maybe there's something else with the studio going on, but overall, the Snyder version is a much better movie than the Whedon version. Number two, Wonder Woman. I love this version of Wonder Woman. Now, I love the animated versions of DC characters like the Justice League and stuff, but the one area where I like the live action better than the animated version is Wonder Woman. The animated version of Wonder Woman is very cold, very kind of like, I mean, I'm talking about like the Justice League animated series. Very cold, very, I don't know, like I don't really enjoy that character. But this version of Diana is amazing. Like she is very friendly, very nice. But when she has to fight, and this is a key thing, when she has to fight, she has to go at it, she will. And that's cool. Like she's not afraid to murder people, kill people, which is part of the character in general. So this is the whole not murdering thing. I know there's a whole debate about that. That's definitely the case with Diana, a goddess, and she does kill people, and she kills people, in the other versions as well. And so yeah, so I thought she was great as I think Gal Gadot is great as Diana, and that really reflects in the movie itself. Now the movie itself is also great. You have a great team, great chemistry. Steve Trevor is amazing, and his sacrifice at the end, if not for Wonder Woman 1984, has this very kind of deep sentimental thing. Like he literally dies to try to save the day. And he sacrificed himself. And again, don't bring him back. Let the death happen, and that'll affect Diana. And so as she goes forward in her life, that loss is going to drive her to try to make a world that doesn't need people like Trevor to die, to sacrifice themselves for peace, basically. Also, I will note that the plot twist did get me in this one. So in the trailers, they set up the villain to be different, these two different characters, which you do see in the film. And so going to the film, I didn't know where this was going. So I was actually truly, genuinely surprised when they had the little twist where, when Ares showed up. I'm like, oh, whoa, that's kind of cool. I like that. So it was a good twist. And so, oftentimes in these films, it gets very predictable. They're doing the same blueprint over and over again. So when they had the twist with Ares showing up, I'm like, okay, you got me that time. I really liked that. It was good. And so yeah, overall, I loved Wonder Woman. Number one, Man of Steel. Now, I have never been a big Superman fan. Now, there are a few exceptions, though. So the old, 1930s, 1940s cartoons where, Superman comes on the scene. He changes from Clark Kent to Superman. He fights like a gorilla or a laser or what have you. And then he loses, gets his butt kicked, and he comes back and wins. I love those. Those very, short little films. Those are great. I like I like the animated stuff, too. But in regards to Superman as a character, he's never been the most interesting because I feel like he's overpowered. I feel like, he's in a situation where they make new powers to get him to win he can beat basically anybody. That's kind of the way he is, and I don't like that. Like I like characters who are up against it. Think about at the end of Endgame, where you have Captain America faced off against Thanos and his forces, and obviously, he's gonna lose if the other stuff, doesn't happen after that. But he's set, he's ready. I'm gonna go fight this. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna lose, but at least I fought. At least I gave it an effort. With Superman, it's just he could. All the villains that he faces, for the most part, a lot of them are weaker than him or on the same level. So that's always been a thing. I've never been a fan of Superman. But with this Zack Snyder version, they do a lot of things. One, they humanize him. And when I say humanize him, obviously he's not human, but he grew up in a human family. He grew up on Earth. His point of reference is Earth. He's Kryptonian, but he doesn't know Krypton. He was a baby when he left Krypton. He doesn't remember it. So he's human culturally. And so they Snyder got that. Like, even though, again, he's a good person, he's a Boy Scout, but internally, he had to go through all the same things humans have to go through to become mature. And so he's maturing in parts of the movie. You see him maturing. And so, yes, he's not a finished product. He does get to the point where, he is Superman, in my opinion. But yeah, he had to grow. He had to go through personal growth. They made his powers make sense. Like, he does he goes this whole thing about where his powers come from, why he has these powers. So they make sense. And I like that. Explain them. Explain why he's so strong. Explain why he could fly. Explain why he's impervious to certain things. Why, does, do certain things hurt him or not hurt him, that type of thing. But he made Superman make sense. And another thing, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, Lois Lane is not an idiot. Like, come on. The guy that you're covering and have a crush on, and the guy that you work with every single day, the only difference is glasses. Come on. Come on now. So they'll make Lois not an idiot. I love that. I love that part of Man of Steel. So I'll stop there. I know I probably just spoiled it, but come on. Lois isn't an idiot. She could see. She's a reporter. And I know, some of the criticism of this film is the fact that Superman does kill. And even, I think when I saw the movie, I saw it with my wife and my father-in-law. And even he commented on Superman killing at the end. And I don't know. That's the one place where I think I do diverge from probably a lot of DC fans or what have you. I felt like that was the right decision in that moment. I mean, Superman, I get his first instinct isn't to kill people. Like, that's what makes him different. But in a given situation where it's between people dying and him killing Zod, if he has no other choice, he does the thing that a lot of people would do. Like, a lot of people, to save a child from being murdered or worse, some horrible thing happening to him, even though it's not in us to hurt other people or to kill, we have to sometimes. I mean, it's part of being human, in that when certain situations happen, you do things that you wouldn't normally do for the greater good. And so he did that for the greater good. But what makes him Superman is that this isn't something he's relishing. He's not like, oh yeah, I got him. It rips at his soul. You see his reaction, and that was Superman to me. So again, I don't buy the idea that, just because he's Superman, because obviously Superman, at some point will do something, and it could call, when you have his kind of powers, accidental deaths can happen. Like, that's just something, and he's not perfect. He's not, he's not literally not a god. And so, you would think that, in the continuity of the universe, at some point he would do something that causes death. And so his reaction to, I don't want to do that again, or this is a horrible, I'm not, I don't want to feel this way again. That's part of it. It's almost like a police officer. A police officer doesn't want to, any good police officer doesn't want to use their service weapon, but they will if they have to, either to protect their own lives or to protect the lives of the people that they're there to protect and serve. I'm talking about a good police officer. And so, yes, he had to kill in that situation. That was what was required. And so, yeah, I don't think that makes the movie bad. So yeah, I love Man of Steel. It's my favorite DC movie. Now, again, if I'm going to pick one just to like zone out, it's going to be the Suicide Squad, because it's fun. It's a cool little movie that way. I've seen it a couple times. I've seen Man of Steel a couple times too. This is one that's more serious. And so it doesn't take itself as, it takes itself more seriously, but I think it's just a better movie. And it's a movie that I think if not for the failings of, say, Joss Whedon's Justice League in particular, and Batman v Superman, which shouldn't have existed in the first place, I think people would love this film more. And just the last thing, DC has always done great with standalone movies, movies that, were their own thing. I think about Joker, for example, with Joaquin Phoenix. Even I would say like the original Superman, even though it had a sequel, it still wasn't part of over larger universe. It was Superman 1, 2, 3. 3 was terrible, but it's all these Superman films. And so when it's a standalone character film, I think it's great. So had they done Man of Steel and had it been just a standalone thing without Batman, without the other Justice League, I think it would have been fine. Just like the Nolan's Batman movies were great, because you just had Batman. It wasn't the Justice League. And so I think had they just done Man of Steel as its own thing, so Man of Steel 1, 2, and 3, then people would have liked it more, because you would have seen the character evolve. and maybe you would have they would have kind of dealt with the ramifications of him killing in this one moment, because he doesn't really kill again himself. I mean, of course, in the Justice League, but I won't go there. But the point is, to see the impact of that on him, I think would have been important. Where again, he doesn't try to hurt people, but it happens when you have that much power. With much power comes with great responsibility, and so I think that would have been something that could have been dealt with in Man of Steel 2 and 3. Now, if you found that video interesting and or informative, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if there's other comic book or sci-fi related content you want me to talk about on this channel, please leave those suggestions in the comment section below. Thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.